As far as jobs, what kind of jobs realistically you think can be created, and how is the Harbor District going to be involved in that?
Well, if you can create light industry jobs, and I guess I'll go back to Fox Farms, that's right there on the bay that's just started doing business not that long back, and now is running around, I think, 16 trucks out a week or something like that of soil that's employing people on the peninsula. Things like that I think are value added for our area. I would like to see the creation of jobs as quickly as possible. Of course, that's not all necessary that can happen right away, but things like that are things in the right direction.
And as far as those other two aspects of the Harbor District job, it's not just the bay and the economy, but it's recreation and conservation. What would you bring to the table, and where do you think the district needs to go to promote those aspects of the job?
I think the district's been doing a pretty good job on trying to expand use like dock usages and expanding on making the bay access easier for kayakers and people who use the bay recreationally. I think that I couldn't downplay anything that they've been doing right now. I think just by me driving across that bridge every day and watching so much more action going on as far as fishing off there, because there's easy access right there underneath the bridge, and just to see all the people that are actually using the bay is pretty inspiring.
I understand from some of the maritime folks around that there's a years-long waiting list to get certain slips over that Woodley Island Marina. Do you think that needs to be expanded?
I hadn't even considered whether there is an expansion possibility there. I guess there might be, but that would be an idea to be looking into. Of course, that would create more revenue for the district also, and money is becoming an issue, because I think that once they hit $1 million, they're starting to be having real issues financially. But like I said, they've taken a step in the right direction. The director, some of the people that work there have taken huge cuts. The bar pilots, too, they took almost a half cut in pay. So, they've been making do with what they can, but I think we really start to need to look at something that's revenue generating.
Redwood Marine Terminal was cited by that one study as something that could potentially generate revenue for the district, although only several years down the line. Do you think that's too much of a gamble or a risk that the district needs to take?
Well, the district needs to take a look at all avenues as far as just when it comes to the Redwood dock, to see the feasibility of it and to make sane judgment of what is actually viable. As far as I've worked on that dock. I know it's going to take a huge amount of money to put it into use, and plus you start to have to think about the infrastructure here. If you're going to have the Redwood dock be practical, you're going to have rail sooner or later to get product out of here also, distribute it on mainland. So I'm not an obstructionist in any way on the rail. Of course, I'm like a lot of people, I'm skeptical where the money's coming from. I'm just hoping that nobody gives up on it completely, because if we are going to grow in the future, I think we do need to really consider what our options are as far as the dock. But again, like I told you before, I'm not against looking at the short term, which would be short sea shipping, if we can just get commerce going on the bay.
Now, of course, the bay has a finite amount of waterfront available for industrialization or other sorts of developments. Some of it's already set aside for various conservation measures, whether it's the marsh in the Arcata area or the wildlife reserve on the south end of the bay. So as far as the middle of the bay, what's your take on that balloon track? Is that really the best use for that maritime area? Obviously, the district doesn't control that, but it does have some influence.
Yeah, well, that of course isn't much in the hands of the Harbor District. That's more of the city of Eureka's issue and the residents of Eureka. But as far as cleanup, I would like to see the balloon track cleaned up, and I would like to see it used in any type of fashion right now. I've been on record, concerned about Home Depot coming in to that balloon track, but as long as there was somehow we could be assured that they had paid living wages, and that maybe they could have an inclusionary language that would allow them to be organized. I am a union organizer, and so I would like that opportunity if they did come in But I'm not going to be an obstructionist to the balloon track either. I'm not going to be out there with the sign. I think it needs to be cleaned up. And from what I've heard, and this last month, is that they're talking about soil eradication, which would be a step in the right direction. That would go up and above what they're actually legally bound to do. But hey, that thing's been sitting there a long time. I'd like to see something on the balloon track.
Mm-hmm. How do you see the role of local educational institutions? Do you think the district could be working more with them to promote some of the science aspects of conservation and studying more, for example, the dioxin levels in the bay? How do you go about cleaning that up in the long term?
Well, see, from what I've heard, I guess education-wise, from what I've heard, is our aquaculture is very, enriched here by clean waters that go through our Humboldt Bay naturally, and which a lot of people have always gave the assumption that we have some highly polluted waters, but actually we seem to have waters clear enough to create a great aquaculture for oysters. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see the expansion of that type of aquaculture.
So as far as just the plain old politics involved, how would you say you plan to run this campaign? Would you run it differently than you have your previous ones? Obviously, it's sort of the same territory as the supervisorial district.
Same territory as the supervisorial position, in the 4th district, and I have ran for office for county supervisor, and so I'm familiar with the ground flood. I lived in the 4th district almost my entire life. Mm-hmm. Grew up in Myrtletown and lived on the peninsula for 30 years. I'm familiar with the people. Besides working out the pulp mill, I'm the president of Mad River Softball Association. I'm on the Humboldt Domestic Violence Services Board of Directors, and of course on the Samoa Peninsula Fire District. So I think I'm, plus after directing many youth and adult sports in the area, I think I have a lay of a lot of people that know me, that know that I get things done.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say your backing is at this point? Obviously, I know the Buildings and Trades Council this week came out in favor of it.
Yes. I'm early in the race because I just finalized my paperwork, the closing of the deadline for even running for this position was last Wednesday, just a few days ago.
Sure.
And so I waited until Dennis Hunter had made his decision whether he was going to run for the position or not. And based on that, that's why I jumped in the race. I thought, I could run a viable campaign for this position.
And is Mr. Hunter backing you, the candidates at this point?
Mr. Hunter has not endorsed any candidate at this point.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anything else you think you'd like to get out there to the voters? What they need to consider when they're making this decision in November?
If they're looking for somebody who will help try to create work, actual jobs on this bay, I would think that I would probably be their candidate. And knowing the unemployment rates in this county, I think that would probably be the one thing that people would want to hear, is we need to do something progressive to bring in work in Humboldt County.
Okay, well, thanks so much for your time today, and see you out there in the campaign trail.